do have a roped off section that's going to be right in front of the fence line down there. Much like up here, we just ask that you stay on this side of the rope for your safety, just in case if we get a muskox that decides wants to test the fence line level. So without further ado, let's head on down. I won't officially begin the tour till we get down there so everyone can hear me. But yeah, it's gonna be a great time. Let's head on down. 3 bulls in this pen. We have Kermit, Gonzo, and then Yessie. Kermit and Gonzo are 2-year-olds, and they were named after our Muppet theme that year. And Yessie is actually one of our oldest bulls on the farm at being a tender age of 15 years old. But I'll get more onto that shortly. I like to begin my tours off with just giving a brief overview of our facility here, what we do and what we're all about. So beginning off with the history here at Lars, fun fact, we were not always a muskox farm. Prior to the farm being established, we were a Siberian wheat farm, and it was owned by a dude by the name of Mike Yankovich. And so you folks might have noticed that coming up over here that we are on Yankovich Road, that is after Mike Yankovich. And it wasn't until actually 1963 that Mike Yankovich deeded this property over to the University of Alaska. And then from there, a year later, in 1964, a man named John Teal had this mission and vision of getting muskox established here in interior Alaska. And then he was thinking, well, I'm going to try to domesticate these animals and, you know, make a little bit of money off of them by selling their kiviot. And so the kiviot is going to be their thick underlayer of fur, and I'll touch on that a little bit later. Unfortunately, due to the lack of resources that we had at the time in the 1960s, unfortunately John Teal's project was abandoned. That project does live on today down at the muskox farm down in Palmer, Alaska, so it's about an hour north of Anchorage. Their goal down in Palmer, Alaska is to domesticate these animals because they're still considered as wild animals today. Even though Kermit behind me is a pretty docile creature, he's still considered to be wild. But anyway, it actually wasn't until 1979 that we actually became the full-fledged large animal research station that we see today. Here at the Large Animal Research Station, or LARS as we call it, we perform all sorts of research. We still don't know everything about these animals, and because of the uniqueness of these creatures, we are trying to figure out as much as we can about them. So we are performing studies on their nutrition, their genetics, their growth and development, and really everything in between. It is quite a fascinating facility here. We do find out new things each year about these creatures. We have a research study right now being performed by a lady from the University of Calgary in Canada, where she's coming over here to our captive muskox farm, and she's actually taking hair samples and feces samples from our muskox and testing for their levels of cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone, and so with that, she's going to test our captive breed, or captive herd here, and then she's going to go to northern Canada, where she's going to test the stress levels in the northern populations there. So as one can theorize that the ones out in the wild are probably a little bit more stressed. The muskox and reindeer here, they have 24/7 access to hay. We do have automatic water, so them water troughs are always full. And every single animal here gets 2 rations of feed every morning and every evening. So they're well cared for. I like to say this is like the Hamptons for our muskox. Lars here is, fun fact, the only research facility in the world for captive muskox. The muskox farm down in Palmer does not perform research simply because, again, their goal is to domesticate the animals and harvest their kiviot. So with the research studies that we are performing here, we are one of a kind. And so here at the farm, we have approximately We have exactly 136 acres. So what we see here is just a brief glimpse into what the actual land here is at Lars. We do have lots of open pastures here, but most of these pastures do extend back into the woods. They're getting their feed ration right now, so I'm expecting him to meander away from me. But where am I going with this? These pastures do extend back into the woods, and so these animals are not native to interior Alaska, the musk oxen, and so they are well adapted to live in the Arctic. So with the hot sun above, it does get a little toasty here. So with these fences extending back into the woods, these animals have an opportunity to get relief in the shade and have a little bit cooler relaxation there. And so right now, on the reindeer side of research, we are researching their genetics, and we are actually doing research on their testosterone levels during the breeding season and what we can do to curb it. So fascinating stuff that's happening. So before I touch in on the animals here, what sort of questions do we have about the overall history, mission, and vision of our facility here? Oh, perfect. She'll drop off feed right here in front of you folks so you guys can get some good pictures. Look at him go! That's Gonzo. That's our other 2-year-old. You can tell that these are younger muskox because you can see that their horns are pretty much sticking straight out. If we get a chance to look at the skulls here, you'll notice that a normal muskox, the horns will grow out and then they'll actually curve right down below the face here, as you would see in these adult skulls here. But since they are just nearly adolescent, the awkward teenage stage, the horns are still going to be sticking straight out. So it won't actually be until approximately 6 to maximum 8 years, so where their horns are going to fully develop into the big horns that we see here. And until then, they get to have those horns stick straight out.